time on how I found out the FBI was spying on me for 7 months. At the time this was going on, I was a junior in high school. And in the mornings, I would walk to school because my school was only like a couple blocks down. But I always noticed there was like a gray minivan always going the same direction as me. So I always assumed that it was probably another kid from my school and his or her parents was driving them to school. And one day I left home early because I wanted to get food from the store. So I went to a corner store, and when I came out, that same minivan was parked outside of the store. And then I was like, okay. Thought that was weird, but I walked back to school. But I didn't go the normal way that I usually go. I took a different shortcut that day because I didn't want to be late for school. And halfway there, that same minivan pops up. I got to school. Every day, my friends would just ask me weird questions about what I was doing, where I was going. And it was weird because I felt like I was being interrogated. After a couple months passed down, still being questioned, and I get called down to the principal's office. And I'm scared because I'm like, am I in trouble? What did I do? When I walk in, there's detectives sitting down. They then sat me down, started asking me questions. They laid out a bunch of pictures of me. And this is kind of how I found out they was watching me for so long. They asked me if my name was my real name. Am I the age of my birth certificate? Asked me if I was an immigrant. And I was so confused. And come to find out, they thought I was a mass murderer. As in, like, they thought that I was the guy that was abducting women. When I told them, this wasn't me. I didn't do this stuff, man. They did some background checks. They got my family involved. My parents even wanted to sue because they didn't even know this was going on. Because at the time, I was a minor and I was getting questioned. Here's another toxic best friend story time. And ladies, you're going to want to hear this one. So, one day in school, I met this boy, which we're going to call Tyrone. We became friends, like really, really close friends. And over time, he asked me to be his girlfriend. And of course, I said yes. Because, I already had a secret crush on him already. And, everything was cute for a while, until he started to act very distant. And I was very confused. He wouldn't give me hugs, kisses, and he wouldn't spend no time to really see me. Until randomly, his girl best friend had told me that he was cheating on me. She sent me message screenshots, but I didn't know they were fake at the time. And seeing that, I was like, no, I'm done, and I broke up with him. For a whole year, I didn't speak to him. And weirdly, he started dating his best friend. But then we started to talk again, but just as friends. Ended up finding out that he didn't cheat on me. And his now girlfriend broke us up. Storytime on Tinder date from hell. So recently, I got dumped by my boyfriend. I went over to my friend's house because I was feeling down, and she convinced me to get a Tinder. So I immediately matched with this guy, and what drew me to swipe right was because he looked like my celebrity crush. Anyways, we started talking and we exchanged phone numbers. Everything was good. I Snapchatted him, so he knew I was real. Over time, he would get upset when I would post my guy friends on my Snap. And he'd say things in Spanish like, you're mine. And at the time, I thought it was cute, not realizing it was a obsessive thing. We talked just about every day until one day I got together with my friends and we went out. And remember how I told you guys that he didn't really like my friends? Well, he randomly calls me at 2 a.m. crying and claiming that he got stabbed. If you want to know what happened after that, come back for part 2. Part 2 of Tinder date from hell. So, like I said earlier, I went out with my friends and he randomly calls me at 2 a.m. claiming that he got stabbed. And I, of course, thought that was crazy. I felt bad for him and wanted to be there, but I would never see the wound. A couple days later, he had his friends add me on Snapchat. And one of his friend's girlfriends told me to get away from him and that he was obsessed with me. And all he would talk about was me. And he ain't never get stabbed. When I found that out, I wanted to leave the whole relationship alone. And he went off on me. Like, he went psycho crazy and told me that he was going to off himself if I ever decided to leave. And mind you guys, I barely even know this man. It gets even crazier. Come back for part 3. Part 3 of Tinder date from hell. So after I found out that he tried to fake getting stabbed, I told him I was ready to leave the whole relationship and he threatened to off himself if I decided to go. After that, I couldn't deal with him anymore, so I ignored him and he would blow up my phone. When I got tired of his craziness, I blocked his number and blocked him from all my social medias. He began starting to make fake accounts, adding me. A couple weeks later, I saw him at a club one night and he saw me. He started walking my way and I didn't want to be rude, so I allowed him to talk to me and I kind of felt bad for kind of ghosting him, so I just entertained to be nice and hoped that all the stuff that he did in the past was just a phase. And he was really nice and he actually bought me a drink. And I really thought nothing of it until I started to feel dizzy right after drinking the drink and I passed out. It gets worse after this. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 4. Story time on how I got pregnant at 12 years old, and the guy who I was talking to at the time was 18, but he told me he was 15. Anyways, my child's father, which we're going to call Kareem, I met at a summer party, which, by the way, I wasn't supposed to go to, but I sneaked out with my friends. Me and Kareem met at the party. He asked for my number, but I gave him my Instagram instead because at the time I didn't even have a phone. I had an iPad mini that I would use at home. So I text him on there just about every night. He always talked about how I was the only girl he wanted, and my naive 12-year-old self believed everything he was telling me. Maybe 2 weeks later, he asked me if I was a virgin, and I didn't want him to think I was weird, so I said no, even though I was. And this is when everything starts to go wrong. Come back for part 2. This is part 2 on how I got pregnant at 12 years old, and the guy I was talking to at the time was 18. So, like I said earlier, he asked me if I was a virgin, and I said no, even though I was, because I didn't want to look like a weirdo. Kareem starts talking about how we should go on a little movie date, and that he'd buy me popcorn and whatever I wanted from the movie theater. So, Friday night comes around, I sneak out of the house, and I met with Kareem down the street. He pulls me close and said that he wanted to blindfold me because he had a little surprise. I was nervous, but I trusted him, so I allowed him to blindfold me, by the way, which was the biggest mistake ever. So he grabs my hand and holds my bag, and all of a sudden, I hear people, and I get picked up, and I feel multiple people filling on me. This is when the night takes a turn. I'm running out of time. Please come back for part 3. This is part 3 on how I got pregnant at 12 years old, and the guy who I was talking to at the time was 18. So Kareem blindfolds me for a surprise, and I get picked up. And it felt like there were multiple people picking me up. I screamed and told him to get off of me, and I tried to take my blindfold off, but Kareem yells out, "No, not yet." And I started to get a little confused and scared, and this went on for like a good minute, and I was just struggling to basically get away. Then I hear doors open and I'm screaming, and Kareem tells me to calm down. When I finally get put down, I end up smacking someone in the face just so they could let go of me. When I snatched my blindfold off to see where I was in someone's room. This is when it gets really manipulative. I'll be back soon as possible for part 4. This is part 4 on how I got pregnant at 12 years old, and the guy I was talking to at the time was 18. So I take off my blindfold and I'm in someone's room. I turn around and it's Kareem. I asked him what's going on and why am I there. Kareem looks at me and tells me that he brought me there for a surprise. When I look around, there's candles lit in the room, and I asked him, I thought we were going to the movies, and he tells me the movies was closed down. By the way, which it was not. Now thinking he was probably too broke to even take me to the movies. Anyways, Kareem tells me that I was being extra when I got picked up. He said he got his little brothers to transport me to his room. Thinking now it was stupid, but at the time I thought it was cute. Kareem says that he decorated the whole room to look like a movie theater, and that was a lie because his room looked like he scooped all his trash underneath his bed, and he lit up 2 candles. So much for the movies. But now that we're in his room, things get a little hot. Y'all let me know if I should make a part 5. Story time on how I caught my boyfriend cheating on me with 5 girls in my bedroom. Yes, I said my bedroom. Okay, so I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years. So recently, I had gotten into an argument with one of his friends, and his friend told me that my boyfriend was cheating on me. And so I confronted him, and he obviously denied it, but we kept dating and I ignored the whole thing. But I still had my guard up. But after a while, I started to trust him again, and things went back to normal. Also, by the way, me and my boyfriend, we live in the same apartment, but I get off work later than him. So one day, I get off of work early, and as soon as I get home, I heard noises coming from our room. And when I got to the room, I didn't see not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 girls doing it with my man. And of course, when they all saw me, they scrambled like pigeons. And when he was trying to put his clothes back on, I got my taser and tased him in the ball sack. This story time is from a follower, and she really needs advice. By the way, we're calling her Wilhelmina. Wilhelmina is 23, and she takes care of her mom. Her mom is obese, so she can't do things like wash herself, feed herself. She can't even barely move. Her life is just surrounded by just making sure her mom is okay. But Wilhelmina has been feeling depressed because she doesn't go out with her friends, and she mostly just spends her time inside the house with her mom. She really wants to move across the country and have a more exciting life and just live for herself, but she just feels so bad leaving her mom behind. and she's afraid that something might happen to her while she's gone because no one is there to help take care of her mom. She needs some advice on how to work out the situation, so please comment down below some advice. Story time on how I caught my mom cheating on my dad with his brother. So my mom and dad were practically married. It was just never on papers. So on this specific day, my dad went to work and I went to school. My dad is a lawyer and my mom is a teacher. So me and my dad left, and my mom said that she would be leaving in like 5 minutes because she had called the day off. She said that she was going to check on a few things, so we thought that really nothing of it. So school goes by, and I come home, and I see my mom's car in the driveway, but not my dad's. And I see another car in the driveway. I thought it may have just been one of her friends because I have never met my uncle. So I walked in, and I immediately heard, "No name." So I'm thinking, ew, my mom and dad are doing it again. But then again, I remember my dad's car wasn't in the driveway. So I walked upstairs quietly and peeked, and it was my mom and uncle. If y'all want a part 2, let me know down below in the comments. Story time on how I caught my mom cheating on my dad with his brother. So like I said earlier, I took a peek, and it was my mom and my uncle doing the thing. So I decided to record the noises and close the door. Then I ran outside and I called my dad. And my dad was quick. He came within 10 minutes. When he comes in, I tell him to be quiet. When we go upstairs, we don't hear any more noises. When we look inside of the bedroom, they're just sitting on the bed. So, like I said before, I have never met my uncle. So when my dad walked in, he immediately hugged the man. And I was so confused. And I found out that was my uncle. My uncle was like, "Nice to meet you." And I'm immediately disgusted and I roll my eyes. So in front of my mom and my uncle, I pulled out my phone and started playing the video recording of them doing the thing. And my dad immediately starts swinging on my uncle. There's more to the story, but it's just too much to go on with. Story time on how my whole school caught lice. We even had to take a week break from school. Okay, so this happened in the middle of my freshman year of high school. So there were these 3 girls, which we're going to call them Kayla, Rachel, and Maddie, and they were the first ones to have lice. Reason being because they were a clique and they hung around each other a lot. But rumors said that Kayla was the first one to have it because she had a dog that had it. Anyways, Maddie was a part of the cheerleading team and ended up giving it to the entire cheerleading squad. Rachel had a boyfriend and her boyfriend ended up giving it to his entire basketball team. And from there, it kept on spreading. Teachers would make awareness to the point teachers caught it and even the principal caught it, which made the principal had to close the school. But to this day, Kayla denies even having lice, even though her best friends Rachel and Maddie said that she gave it to them. Story time about the most embarrassing sex experience I had in my life. So that night we were on a date and I got my hair, nails, and makeup done. And my hairstylist had me try on this glueless lace wig. It was so cute. Fast forward, after we went out to eat, we went to his place. And things got a little busy. It was very heat of the moment. And I turned over because he about to beat it up. And boy literally starts pulling on my hair. And instead of telling him not to pull on my hair, instead I just decided to hold on to my wig. And you know what happens? He pulls off my wig. And I was so embarrassed. But then he put the wig on his head. And he kept going. This story time is from a follower, and she really needs advice. By the way, we're calling her Katrina. Katrina is in 12th grade, and she really wants to go to college, but she doesn't know what she wants to go in for. Like, she doesn't know what type of career she wants after graduating. Her parents told her if she decided to go to college right after she graduates, they are going to pay for her entire 4 years. But she really thinks that she should take a gap year because she don't want to go into school and having to take an extra year because she didn't pick the right major for herself. But her parents told her if she decided to take a gap year, they are not going to pay for her college tuition. She said she thought about taking a gap year and working, but she doesn't really want to focus on working. She wants to focus on a future career for herself. But y'all comment down below some advice for her. Story time on how I got pregnant by a married man. So we've been friends since elementary school. We were always very close all throughout middle school and high school. So in high school, he got this girl pregnant and ended up getting married to her. The girl didn't like me because she always thought we were messing around, but we never did. So he's been married to her for 5 years with 3 kids, but he's always come to me and complained about how she forced him to get married and he didn't want to get married. He actually didn't really want to be with her and wanted to get a divorce, but she wouldn't sign the divorce papers. But long story short, we had to stop hanging out because of her, and I didn't see him for about 3 years. But until last year of October, we started hanging out again, and it was innocent at first, but then I'm running out of time. Y'all let me know if y'all want a part 2. This story time is how my toxic ex-boyfriend stole $5,000 out of my bank account to give to a girl he was cheating on me with. So I've been with my ex 3 years prior to breaking up. We met at a party. He seemed pretty cool. And from there, he was really nice and different from any guy I met. Any other guy I talked to didn't seem interested in me, but him. It was like he was obsessed with me. He even said that he loved me after 2 weeks of talking. I thought it was cute, but I wasn't trying to get serious so soon. He came off very strict of what he wanted, and one of those things were me. And after 6 months of meeting this great guy, he completely changed. He became physically and emotionally abusive. I even tried to leave at some points of the relationship. One day, he asked if I could spare him some gas money because he needed to pick up his mom's medicine. So I trusted my boyfriend of 3 years and gave him my card to take the money out the ATM. When he came back and gave me my card, he went ghost for 2 days. And of course, I was upset, and I blew up his phone, afraid of what happened to him. When I checked my bank statement, it showed that he took out $5,000. If y'all want to know what happened after that, this is part 2 of how my toxic ex-boyfriend stole $5,000 out of my bank account to give to a girl he was cheating on me with. So after he ghosted me for 2 days, I checked my bank account and my balance came up to $5,000 total. And it seemed like he went to different ATMs because he took a little amount and it all added up to $5,000. I was so upset, I tried calling and texting his friends, but my messages weren't going through, almost like they blocked me. Then I went ahead and called his mom, and luckily she picked up. I asked if she'd seen him, and she said she just saw him today and that she thought we broke up. I was like, he told you we broke up? And she said yes. He even brought his girlfriend Kayla over. I was so furious. She even told me that he helped her move into her new place and that he paid for her first and last month rent. And it was near the mall in our area. And I knew exactly what apartment complex she was talking about. If y'all want to know what happened after that, let me know down below in the comments. This is part 3 of how my toxic ex-boyfriend stole $5,000 out of my bank account to give to a girl he was cheating on me with. So after he lied and told everyone we broke up, I found out he was cheating on me with another girl and used the money I gave him to give her her first and last month rent. I knew exactly what apartment the girl lived in because his mom had told me. I went to the front desk and asked if there was a Kayla, and I lied and said it was for a family emergency. So the guy at the front desk was able to reach her. She had came down, she walked to the desk, and the guy at the desk pointed her towards me. I walked up to her and asked if she knew who I was, and she said no, and I broke everything down to her, telling her everything our boyfriend lied about. And she was so nice. She had no clue that any of this was going on. She even cried, but I told her to stop because I had a revenge plan and that he was going to get everything that was coming to him. And I asked if she wanted to join, and luckily she said yes. So if y'all want to know what happened after that, let me know down below in the comments. And this is when it gets juicy. This is part 4 of how my toxic ex-boyfriend stole $5,000 out of my bank account to give to a girl he was cheating on me with. So after I met Kayla, the girl he was cheating on me with, we created the ultimate get back plan. So she had to completely act like she never met me. She told him she wanted to meet up and go on a surprise vacation and that she wanted to do something fun. And him being dumb, he agreed to it. She told him to pack a bag of his nicest clothes and bring his passport. He came to her place with all his things and they got in a car. I was on the floor in the back seat and he had no clue. So she drove really far from home and stopped by the gas station because she wanted to get frisky. She told him to take off his shoes. Him being dumb, he took off his shoes. She told him to get out of the car real quick because she needed to get the surprise from under the seat. And I popped up and he jumped back. Then I closed and locked the door. He was lost and got mad and started yelling at me, calling me all types of names. If y'all want to know what happened after that, please let me know down below in the comments. This is part 5 of how my toxic ex-boyfriend stole $5,000 out of my bank account to give to a girl he was cheating on me with. So after I popped up and surprised my ex, he was so shook, he was not expecting it, and I quickly closed the door. He banged on the door, telling us to open it up and give him his things. I pulled down the window and tossed him 5 cents, saying, "Have fun walking 5 hours home with the 5 cents that you should have had before cheating on me." And Kayla quickly drove off. It was funny because he had on no shoes. When we left, we took some of his Gucci outfits he broke, cut them up, and tossed them out the window. Some of the clothes we kept and sold them to people we knew, and his passport and wallet and cards and ID was tossed out the window too. After the whole situation was over, we went to Kayla's apartment. She gave me back the money that my ex stole from me, which was kind of hard to do, and we split the money that we made off of selling his clothes. And we're now friends. As for our ex, he could stay where we left him, the streets.
Story time on how my dad tried to abuse me, but my mom saved my life. Okay, y'all, so boom, we gonna get right into it. I was 11 years old at the time, but I only lived with my mom. My parents were married, but my dad had an engineering job at another state, so I rarely seen him. Until around this time when everything started happening, my dad lost his job and he ended up moving back in with me and my mom. So me and my dad's relationship was never the best because it was kind of short-lived and over the phone, but I thought that him moving in would change that. Now, my mom was working 2 jobs, but she was doing so great at her first job that she was going to quit at her second job because they were giving her a promotion. Keep this in mind because it's important for the future. So about 2 weeks into my dad moving back in with us, I would always be alone with him when my mom went to work. And each day in these 2 weeks, it started escalating more and more between me and my dad. Things went from him rubbing my shoulders to my arms to my thighs and to my cat. I didn't know what to do, and each night I went to sleep crying, running out of time, like for part 2. Part 2 on how my dad tried to abuse me, but my mom saved my life. Okay, so boom, like I said, my dad went from touching me on my shoulders to my arms to my thighs to my cat. I cried myself to sleep every night because I was terrified and I didn't know what to do. I didn't tell my mom because I was literally just scared. But my mom is a superhero. She noticed that there was something wrong with me. She asked me if I was okay and she kept checking on me every single night. I even heard her ask my dad what was going on, but of course my dad denied knowing anything. But my mom noticed that things changed only when my dad moved back in. So the next day, remember that job I told you my mom had? Yeah, she got promoted and she quit her second job. She literally came home 6 hours early. So of course, my dad didn't expect her anytime soon. Well, she seen my dad trying to do the nasty with me, and she literally slapped the living soul out of him. Me and my mom went to my aunt's house, and she divorced him, and he's now in prison. Till this day, I thank my mom because he never got a chance to fully violate me. Story time on how my boyfriend mom went from hating me to having a threesome with me and her son. Okay, so boom, we are jumping right in. One day I was with my boyfriend and we were on our way to the movies and he got a call from his mom. She told him that he needed to come home immediately because of something important at home. But I knew that every time she did this was because she really just wanted her son to stop hanging out with me because she hated my guts. Like she did not like me and I never knew why. Oh, but one day I figured it out. So one evening on the 1-month anniversary of me and my boyfriend, I was getting ready, doing what girls do, and I kind of expected you know what to happen, so I shaved my hoo-ha. I got all pretty and I headed over to my boyfriend's house. I knock on the door and his mom answers. His mom then tells me that I'm an hour early and he's still getting his haircut, so he's not home. I told her sorry, I must have gotten the times wrong, so I asked her if I can wait right here. She gave me a disgusted look and said whatever and slammed the door. Then she said she's been waiting for this moment, like for part 2. Part 2 on how my boyfriend mom went from hating me to having a threesome with me and her son. Okay, so boom, like I said, she closed the door and told me she's been waiting for this moment. She then says that I'm a fine young lady and she's been waiting to have me alone and that we have 1 hour before her son gets there. At that moment, it hit me. I knew exactly what was going on. And quite frankly, I was happy because his mom is hot. She led me to her room and then we started doing the nasty. By the way, she's 29 and I'm 17. Y'all wouldn't believe what happened next. My boyfriend walked through the door, caught us, but he wasn't shocked. He wasn't even mad. It was more like a jealous thing. Then he joined and we all started doing the nasty. I was literally shocked. I didn't believe what was happening. And this went on for 2 years. But then me and my boyfriend wanted to stop and just focus on each other and not his mom. She didn't like that at all. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how my boyfriend mom went from hating me to having a threesome with me and her son. Okay, so boom, like I said, after 2 years of me and my boyfriend dealing with his mom, we wanted to stop and just focus on each other. And oh, she didn't like that at all. She went right back to treating me horribly and hating my guts. And whenever she had a chance, she kept trying to break me and my boyfriend up. But it never worked. It looks like the only way to make her stop is to dabble back with her, but I'm not interested. Eventually, I'll move out with my boyfriend and we'll be all situated. So if you find out your boyfriend mom hates you, maybe she just wants to be with you. Story time on how I found out my dad wanted to do the nasty with me. Okay, so boom. I was 9 at the time and my dad was 30 and my mom was 29. Me and my dad were close, but we weren't that close. You get what I'm saying? Me and my mom, on the other hand, we were besties. That's my best friend. She a real on the dance floor. Anyways, one day while my mom was at work, my dad asked me to come sit on his lap. Now let me remind you that I'm 9 years old and I don't know what's going on in my dad's mind, so I just sit on his lap. Then while I was sitting, he started moving me around his lap while moaning. At first, I thought he was laughing, so I thought it was a joke, so I never told my mom. But then it started happening every day. He only did this when my mom wasn't home. I became extremely uncomfortable, so I finally told my mom. My mom asked me how did it look and sound, and I showed her. She immediately ran to my dad and slapped him. Life for part 2. Part 2 on how I found out my dad wanted to do the nasty with me. Okay, so boom, like I said, my mom ran to my dad and slapped him. Then my mom told me to stay in my room while they, talked. She told me to get ready for bed, so that's what I did, and I went to school the next day. And guess who picked me up? Yeah, my dad. But I thought it was all good because he took me to the park and nothing happened. But I was wrong, because once we got home, my dad thought my mom was working, so he tried to do the nasty with me, and he tried to make me do stuff with him. But the gag was, my mom was in the room sleeping. She usually got off at 6, but today she got off at 2, and I got out of school around 4. Anyways, while my dad was trying to make me do things with him, I started screaming. My mom was sleeping, so once she heard me screaming, she ran to my motherfucking rescue. When I tell you my mom dealt with him, she dealt with him. Got a divorce, and now I live with her. Most importantly, he never got a chance to violate me. MVP mom. Story time on how my mom and dad did the nasty with my best friend. Okay, so boom. My best friend is 17, my mom is 34, and my dad is 38. Every day after school, my mom would pick me and my best friend up and take us to our home because my best friend's parents worked until late nights. My parents grew to love my best friend and she became part of the family. Well, one night I went to another friend's house to complete a homework project. And when I got back, my parents and my friend looked strange. They were all laughing and just really touchy with each other. Little strange, but I thought nothing of it and I pushed it to the side, and a month later I got a job. So now my mom would pick me and my best friend up from school, but this time she would drop me off at Chick-fil-A. And every night I got back, things got weirder and weirder. But once again, I just kept brushing it off. But little did I know that I was about to walk into some mess. Let's just say cops were called. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my mom and dad did the nasty with my best friend. Okay, so boom, like I said, things kept getting weird with my parents and my best friend, but I just kept brushing it off. Well, one day I was covering a shift at my job, Chick-fil-A, and when I got there, the person was there. Turns out that they were just playing a prank on me, but that's neither here nor there. So I called my mom to come pick me up because it was so early. My mom didn't answer, my best friend didn't answer, and my dad didn't answer, so I got worried. I had $40, so I ended up just taking an Uber home. Once I got there, I searched my whole house and there was no one there. But I found all 3 of their phones in my parents' room, and my mom's clothes was all over the place. So I called the cops. I start searching the house and I'm on the phone with the cops. I end up going to the back of the house where the spa is. Yeah, our house was pretty big. I make a right turn to the spa and find my dad, my mom, and my best friend doing the nasty in the water. Ciao, like for part 3. Part 3 on how my mom and dad did the nasty with my best friend. Okay, so boom, like I said, I make a right turn to the spa and I found my mom, my dad, and my best friend doing the nasty in the water. I literally screamed so hard and the cops asked me if I was okay. Then I said, sorry, there's no missing person, but there is underage nastiness going on. The police immediately came, arrested them, and they pressed charges. All 3 of those people I call my mom, dad, and best friend tried to apologize to me, but I definitely did not accept that. And I ended up moving into my granny's home. Now I'm 27 and I'm happily married, and I didn't invite none of them. I also have a 1-year-old baby boy and my mom is trying to see him. But nope, my grandparents are my only parents that I know. Just because you're blood doesn't make you family. Good riddance. Story time on how my Uber driver tried to kidnap me on my birthday. Okay, y'all, so today's story is my own. And thank you guys for 1 million followers. All right, y'all, let's get into it. Okay, so boom. About 2 years ago in 2019, I lived by myself in my own apartment. At this time, I was at the end of my lease and I was actually moving to another apartment. I had to do everything by myself because I had nobody to help me, so I had to go get a U-Haul truck. This was my first time using Uber because I have my own car. But to get to U-Haul, I had to Uber over there so I could get the truck and then go from apartment to apartment. My first Uber driver bringing me to the U-Haul truck was fine. I had no issues with him and it was pretty normal and fast. So once I was done with the U-Haul truck and I was done moving, I had to return the truck to its location. And then I had to Uber back to my apartment where my car was. Now this second Uber driver, this is where the issue comes in. Y'all, it was literally crazy. My life was at stake. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my Uber driver tried to kidnap me on my birthday. Okay, so boom, like I said, I returned my U-Haul truck and I waited for my Uber driver to come pick me up. When my Uber driver came to pick me up, right from the beginning, I knew something was off about him. Always trust your instincts. He was a little weird and off, but I told myself that it's only a 10-minute drive and it will be over soon. So I sat on the back of the car and I just stayed on my phone. You know, minding my business. And then the guy just started talking to me like, I guess he was trying to have small talk. But the weird thing is, I couldn't understand what he was saying. And I got footage, you guys. Listen to this. Yeah, I didn't know what he was saying, but I just thought he wanted to do small talk. So I just was like, oh, yeah, yeah, oh, ooh, ah. But then all of a sudden, he went off the path of my route. I was like, excuse me, you took the wrong turn. Then he turned back and looked at me and said, I think we're going exactly where we need to be. It gets worse. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how my Uber driver tried to kidnap me on my birthday. Okay, so boom, like I said, he went off the path of my route. And I said, excuse me, you made the wrong turn. Then he turned around and looked at me and said, I think we're going exactly where we need to be. I still didn't get it and I looked confused and I was just like, just drop me off at this gas station here. And child, he locked the door. At that moment, my heart sank and I knew exactly what was going on. I was being kidnapped on my birthday. He locked all the doors and put child lock so I wouldn't be able to unlock and leave either. I was under pressure, but I knew I had to think fast and get out of this situation. Y'all, he was driving fast, but thank God he wasn't on a highway, so there was red lights. And I live in Miami, so traffic hour is real. I knew that once he stopped at a red light, that would be my only chance to get the hell out this car. So here we go. We stopped at the red light and I took his head and bashed it into his steering wheel. He didn't see it coming, so I did it pretty easy. Running out of time, like for part 4. Part 4 on how my Uber driver tried to kidnap me on my birthday. Okay, so boom, like I said, he stopped at a red light and I took his head and started bashing it into the wheel. He didn't see it coming, so that's why I was able to overpower him at that moment. As I was bashing his head, I knew that his door was the only way I was able to get out because of the child lock. As I bashed his head, I unlocked the door and I literally sling my whole body to the front of the car and I was literally on top of him. Unlocked the door, opened it, and I just jumped out. He held onto one of my legs, so I ended up falling on the floor on the street. But at this point, everyone was looking and someone was coming to my rescue, so he just closed his door and locked it. And as soon as the light turned green, he bolted. I was bruised all over, like my arm, but mostly my knees. I went inside the gas station and I waited for my friend to come pick me up. Y'all, all this on my birthday ruined my whole day. But I say that to say this: be careful. Thank you guys for 1 mil. Story time on how my boyfriend married my mom and got her pregnant. It's giving stepdaddy. It's giving betrayal. Anyways, so boom, I was 17 at the time, my boyfriend was 20, and my mom was 35. So me and my boyfriend were together for 2 years, but it was very rocky because he couldn't keep his third leg in his pants. I would go to my mom for advice, but she was always on his side. You know that one family member or friend you go to for advice, and instead of hearing you out, they say, "What did you do?" Yeah, that was my mom. I would be like, "Hey mom, George cheated on me." Let's call him George. And she would say, "Well, honey, what did you do to cause George to cheat on you?" Like, what? Anyways, one day I decided I no longer wanted to be treated like crap, so I left George, and I left George for good. But guess what? He was always still around because my mom would always invite him to dinners and movies, and that was just the beginning. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how my boyfriend married my mom and got her pregnant. Yes, it was giving stepdaddy. So like I said, I broke up with my boyfriend because he was a serial cheater, but my mom was still inviting him over. I would tell my mom to stop, but she kept saying that he was family. I was so pissed at my mom that I literally always stayed in my room, and when he would come over, I would hear them downstairs watching movies and laughing. I thought it was weird, but I definitely didn't think they would have gotten married, let alone have my little sister. Well, 2 weeks after our breakup, yes, just 2 weeks, one night when my ex-boyfriend George was over, I all of a sudden didn't hear them downstairs watching a movie, but I did hear my mom's room door slam shut. Then I heard thumping. And that wasn't about to happen on my watch. I ran to open the door, but the door was locked, so I started knocking. My mom opened the door and I seen her hair in shambles and my ex on her bed. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how my boyfriend married my mom and got her pregnant. Yes, stepdaddy, we get it. So like I said, I heard thumping in my mom's room, so I ran and opened the door, but it was locked. So I knocked, she opened the door, and her hair was in shambles with my ex on her bed. And might I add, he was naked. I cried and said, how could you do this to me? Do you know what this lady said? She said, well, sweetie, I understand him. You guys weren't compatible. And we're getting married Sunday, so this is something you're gonna have to get used to. I attacked my mom, fought her, beat her actually, and I moved in with my dad, who was disgusted by her. I bet you guys are hoping she didn't actually marry him. Well, she did, and she ended up pregnant. I had the last laugh, because fast forward a year later and my mom is crying in tears. And y'all wouldn't believe why. The story gets crazier. Like for part 4. Part 4 on how my ex married my mom and got her pregnant. He graduated to stepdaddy, but not for long. So like I said, fast forward a year later, I had the last laugh because here is my mom crying her eyes out. Why, you may ask? Oh yeah, he was cheating a lot. And with younger girls. He even tried to get back with me. I laughed at my mom and said, oh, I thought you understood him, You must be doing something to make him cheat. Karma's a bee. And my mom was pregnant with a girl, but unfortunately she had a miscarriage. Rest in peace to my sister. That's the only part I'm actually sad about. She ended up divorcing my ex and now she's left with nothing. No husband, 2 failed marriages, no relationship with your daughter. And don't feel bad for her, guys. She went for her sister's man next. But that's a whole nother story. Story time on how I caught the deacon sleeping with the altar boy in the same room as me. Okay, so boom, I have a religious family that goes to church every Sunday. My parents would always volunteer me to help around in church, so half of my life I lived at church. The deacon of the church was 48, and the altar boy, who was also my friend, was 12. Now, this story gets straight to the point. There's not really any backstory. There was nothing suspicious at all. The deacon and the altar boy barely spoke to each other. Like literally no one in church or anyone around the church who helped suspected anything. Well, one day my pastor asked me to fold 100 linens. It was for a church party that was happening. He set me up in one of the rooms that were barely used and told me he was going to send somebody to help. 20 minutes in, I got cold since I was sitting under the vent, so I moved to the corner of the room. The corner I moved to, you barely couldn't see me because I was covered by benches. 10 minutes after I moved, the deacon and the altar boy walks into the room, locks the door, and starts making out, and it doesn't stop there. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I caught the deacon sleeping with the altar boy in the same room as me. So like I said, I was in a corner peacefully folding my linen until the deacon and the altar boy walks in. They didn't see me and they start making out. All of a sudden, pants are being taken off, booties are being grabbed, and people are being bent over. And if you're asking if they, yeah, they did. And I watched the whole thing in shock. By this point, I already dropped to the floor and I was just hiding. 10 minutes, yes, 10 minutes when they were finally done, they walked out. I told my parents as soon as I got home and y'all wouldn't believe the response. They literally said that church was filled with powerful people and they didn't want to involve themselves in it, so they told me not to tell a soul. My parents took me left and we never looked back, never went back to that church again. So this is kind of like a deep, dark family secret, but hey, now you guys know. Story time on how I was almost kidnapped. Okay, you guys, so today's story is my own. Let's get into it. Okay, so boom. I was in the 9th grade when this happened and my brother was in the 12th. We always took a bus to the bus stop that was 5 minutes away from our house and we walked the rest of the way home. I had super strict parents, so I didn't have a cell phone. This detail comes into play later on. So on this particular day, our routine changed. My brother had to complete some community service hours, so we were going to separate. I was going to go home and my brother was going to go the opposite direction to the daycare that was also 5 minutes away from the bus stop. The bus dropped us off and before my brother walked away, he told me to be careful and I was like, yeah, thinking this was going to be a regular walk home. But I was definitely wrong about that. About 3 minutes into me walking, when my brother was no longer in sight, a car slowly pulls up next to me and puts his window down. Like for part 2. Part 2 on how I was almost kidnapped. Okay, so I'm walking home alone and my brother is no longer in sight and the streets are kind of empty. A car slowly pulls up next to me and a guy puts his window down. A man who looks like he's in his 40s yells out, "Hello, beautiful." I kept walking and ignoring him and he got louder, and now he's following me in the same pace as I'm walking with his car. Hey, what's your name? That's what he yelled, but he said it so loud that it scared me and I started walking even faster. He drives up next to me again and leans over to the passenger seat to try to open the door and told me to get in. At this point, I'm jogging. So he parked his car and started jogging right after me. I full-blown started running, and guess what he did? He went back into his car and started driving to me. At this point, I'm 30 seconds away from my house and I don't want to go there so he knows where I live. So I go to the gas station and he follows me. Like for part 3. Part 3 on how I was almost kidnapped. But like I said, I started running and he got back into his car, and I was 30 seconds away from my house, so I didn't want him to know where I lived, so I ran to the gas station and he followed me. So now I'm in the gas station acting like I'm buying something, and this guy literally parked his car and walks inside and comes right up to me. He then says, "Hello, beautiful, what's your name?" I don't know why I answered. I just was scared, so I said my name was Victoria, which is not, it's Valerie, but I said Victoria. Then he grabs my arm and says, "Victoria, you're coming home with me tonight." He starts to squeeze my arm and grips it really tight. Y'all, I was so scared. I don't even know why I didn't scream. I was just like in fear. But I'll be damned if this man was gonna take me home. He whispered in my ear to walk to the car, and at that moment, I screamed to the cashier. Like for part 4.